60 years ago, in October 1962, China attacked India and has left behind an impression on the mind of generations of Indian policymakers that the defeat that it inflicted on Indian troops in the high Himalayas is a lesson that India should never ignore. And the fact that if China is pushed once again into a situation where India is faced with a Chinese military invasion, if at all, the results could be equally resounding for India and have geopolitical implications. But is that really the truth? Is that really the case that India of 2022 is the India of 1962? By 1960, temperatures had begun to run high with the escape of the Dalai Lama into India. And even then, the Chinese had proposed that while the McMahon line that separated Nepal from Tibet and now separates Arunachal from Tibet and China was more or less acceptable to them, the areas on the east of Ladakh, where today the LAC runs, and previously the Johnson line, the McCarthy line, the McCartney line, all ran, was something that the Chinese were willing to talk about and settle on a swap basis, which meant that the Chinese keep Aksai Chin, where Indian presence was not known to have been there, at least for a few decades before the 1962 conflict. And India had a habitated presence in Arunachal Pradesh, which was then Nepal. So why shouldn't India keep that area and allow China to keep Aksai Chin? Nehru was adamant that map or no map, McMahon line is my boundary and I am not willing to negotiate anything about Aksai Chin. Nehru was riding high in the global forums as the leader of the non-aligned world and perhaps took his own stature too seriously. So the Chinese Premier, Chow Enlai, who visited India in 1960, handed Nehru once again this swap proposal. Nehru dismissed it because by then India had published maps by about 1955 that showed Aksai Chin as very much a part of India and of course Arunachal and everything also as part of India. Really, India wanted everything and not to give anything to the Chinese based on the assumption that these were lines that were drawn during the days of the British Empire. So India, having inherited the modern India from the British, also inherited its boundaries, not willing to accept that with the boundaries came boundary-related problems. However, the Chinese, having offered the swap proposal and having been rebuffed by Nehru, despite calls for Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, were quiet about it and began to plan to teach Nehru a lesson. So the Cuban Missile Crisis began around 16th October 1962, and on the night of 19th and 20th of October, the Chinese attacked India in large hordes, ruthlessly running over Indian positions both at Arunachal Pradesh and trying to do the same in Ladakh. In Arunachal Pradesh, which was NIFA, there was a military disaster of the highest order. Nehru and Krishna Menon had placed their chosen man and lackey, Lieutenant General B.M. Kaul, better known as B.G. Kaul, as the corps commander in NIFA, who had no idea of battlefield deployment or fighting, because he was a man who had risen up as a spit and polish soldier from the logistics branch of the army. The Chinese played hell into Indian positions. Indian troops fought like tigers, running out of ammunition, ill-clad, ill-equipped. But when ammunition ran out, they got up and charged with their bayonets, and even in some cases fought with sticks and stones. They fought very bravely, but they lost and they died in the cold winters of the mountains near Arunachal and in NIFA. But Nehru wept later when Lata Mangeshkar sang Mere Watan Ke Logon.